a live stream at the regularly scheduled time? What is it, the end of the world or something? Well, about that. Hey, what's up? Alright, give me that link. Yes. Nice. Okay. Welcome back to the live stream. I need to do some things with my microphone in the OBS sort of settings. Fine enough, your stream started just when I got bored. Hey, well, isn't that nice? I launched the wrong fucking thing again. I've had CTGP for so long that sometimes muscle memory leads me to just click it by accident, and then that happens, which is unfortunate. But you know, it things happen. Uh, Noise suppression, noise gate limiter, threshold. Let's make the threshold negative 10. Yeah. Wait. Okay, hold on. I can actually just specifically type that in. Yes. Do that. I'll watch the video where V wants the worst happen, just so it's more obvious Republicans are evil. I actually think I understand what Vosh is describing in that segment. I've seen that segment, and although I do believe what he's describing is accelerationism. Are you playing on a Wii U or just a Wii? This is a Wii U. You can see here I'm on the Wii U menu, and then I have to navigate to the Wii menu. I agree with the analysis that Vosh is giving there, except for maybe the fact that what he's describing, I think what he was describing, what he was defending, is at its most fundamental level, that is accelerationism, but it is not like the dumb kind of accelerationism where you want society to collapse under much more ordinary circumstances. Here, let me set this to 7.5 or something. There we go. Or maybe just -7 or 6. I don't know. -6 or -7 maybe. There we go. Yeah, like, I think he's correct in saying that the worst possible outcome is that obviously the Trump admin does a lot of damage, but the damage is kind of hidden just barely out of view. Like, it gets papered over enough to where people think like, okay, that was bad, but not like catastrophic. That would be the worst outcome. The better outcome would be for things to basically not be papered over. And for that to happen, the world basically needs to be not cooperating. The world needs to be very uncooperative to the United States, and there have to be negative consequences for bad policy, which is, it is possibly the most defensible imaginable form of accelerationism, but nonetheless, it is accelerationism because the underlying idea is that if things get worse in an unignorable kind of way, people will take notice. It's the same kind of accelerationism, or it's a similar kind of accelerationism to what makes strikes work. You know, because the alternative to a union going on strike would be for working conditions to deteriorate, right? If a union was facing bad working conditions, or workers in a factory or, you know, some sort of production facility somewhere, and, you know, obviously the company's like cutting wages, they're doing layoffs, they're like skipping out on inspections and stuff like that, working conditions are deteriorating. But if there's no strike, if there's no accelerationist action on the part of the workers, then it's possible for the company to just paper things over and to act like everything is normal. The strike actually like prohibits the company from papering things over in a way that looks fine from the outside. Now, obviously, the action, the participant in this relationship doing the action is not the same here. But either way, what's going on is that the administration is going to try their best to sort of paper over the bad policy that they've created so that wealth can sort of quietly be transferred upward rather than the whole thing to come down like crashing and burning as a result of their actions. Picture it like a house of cards, and like the interests of the companies or the interests of a like far-right administration that's controlled by oligarchs is for them to keep removing cards one by one. You want that to like, it's going to collapse. You'd rather it be sooner than later so you can start building something that isn't, you know, a house of cards, right? The longer that stays, the better they're able to paper over that, the more like Jenga pieces or cards they're able to remove without the whole tower collapsing at once, the worse the eventual collapse will be. Yeah, especially with climate change. We need things to be moving as soon as possible. And the best way for that to happen is for them to experience like negative consequences for the policy that they've created. Republicans be like, workers and bosses have power. When workers use that power, they're abusing their bosses. Oh, the projection. But yeah, I think when Vaush says this isn't accelerationism, he's not quite correct, but I understand him wanting to distance himself from self-described accelerationists for sure. But otherwise, he's correct. That, like, probably the best thing that could happen is for fascism to make things worse in an unignorable sort of way, which I think that the Republicans are actually doomed to do. I think that the Republicans cannot engage with politics in a way that avoids things getting so bad so quickly that people have to notice. Does that make sense? Like, fascism being an irrational ideology, a very mystical, irrational ideology motivated by spite, by, like, just uninformed feelings about, like, certain ethnic groups of people or whatever. That also means that they craft policy irrationally, and that does not lend itself well to the maintenance of a country as large or powerful or relevant as the United States. Or any country, really. I mean, like, we've seen time and again, like, you know, if 1v3 were here, he'd be able to attest that, like, every fucking time the far-right party gets elected in the Netherlands, the fucking government collapses because they have no clue what they're doing. And they suck at their jobs. You know? Republicans in the climate disaster will be entertaining, but not good for happiness. Yes, I believe you said this similar thing last time. This is going to be good for content, but not good for the general flourishing of humanity. And that was a weird turn. Oh, I can't believe I made that. That's kind of crazy. Ow. Yo, what's up? No. I messed up big time. But so did they, and now I'm in second. Not driving well to start. Why was every Xbox 360 game like your really sandy background? At least you made your mess look stylish. That's true, yeah. I don't know. I think the graphics of the Xbox 360, the graphical capabilities of the Xbox 360 lent itself to very grainy aesthetics, but then also, like, that was, you know how there's certain phases of AAA gaming or gaming in general where certain aesthetics become more popular. Probably a very sandy, gritty, brown aesthetic was really popular in the Xbox 360 days in particular. Because it was that kind of middling period where, like, gaming in a sort of like realistic graphics sense hadn't reached the uncanny valley yet, so they were worried about making things more and more and more realistic, and the best way they could do that was to not have things be really colorful and saturated. In a way, it's a little bit lazy, but that's the best explanation I could find. You know, it was like one of those big marketing trends. But then now everything, like, you can make stuff look really realistic in the game, but you can actually hit the uncanny valley territory, like, and so it's a little bit less appealing, and it's also kind of been done to death, the whole, like, oh yeah, wow, you made a realistic looking video game with realistic graphics, you know, I've never seen that one before, you know, get some fucking new material, you know what I mean? Seen those art classes that was just like make super realistic humans and that's all you can do? Yeah, in fact, you know, I had to take art classes in school when I was in K-12 education, you know, like primary and secondary, and most of them actually focused on classical drawing techniques of depicting a realistic human form, not the full body obviously, but like the face. Like, that was one of the first things they tried to teach us, was how to draw a realistic face. It was literally like the SpongeBob meme, the fucking bit from SpongeBob, where they're like, okay, first you draw a circle, then you draw this thing, and then you draw these lines, and then you fill in the rest, and then you've got a face, you know? And I was, like, it is hard to describe just how uninterested I was in that. You know what I mean? Like, let me draw some cool shit. Teach me how to draw a guy surfing. I'm actually, in an interesting kind of way, I'm actually self-taught insofar as my drawing abilities. And my drawing abilities aren't stellar, but I'm proud that through my years of doodling, I actually learned well enough how to draw to draw, like, oh, I want to draw a guy surfing, so I know how to draw a wave from a sort of diagonal front-facing perspective. And I know how to draw a guy on a surfboard that looks like he would be, like, contextually appropriate on a wave. You know? Heard stories of other people, people doing other stuff with their lessons, and teachers get mad. They're like, this is not human realistic face, what are you thinking? Yeah, funnily enough, I am one such person with a story like that. I don't want to give too many details because it's actually the source of some bad memories, but in kindergarten, we had one of those assignments, and I was, like, drawing my face. They were like, yeah, we're gonna draw self-portraits. And of course, we're first graders and kindergartners, so they're gonna come out like shit either way, you know? But I just started drawing it the way that I felt like drawing a face, and I was like, okay. And then the teacher was like, no, you can't do it like that. You have to do it the way we learned. Start over. I was like, fuck. I didn't actually say that. I was 5 years old. I didn't know that word, but the general sentiment was the same. And it's a shame, because the art teacher, I remember him, it was a pretty cool guy otherwise. I honestly find it kind of weird how much teachers care about the human realism. It's probably from a grading perspective. It's hard to... art teachers? Yeah. It's hard to judge, like, what is, like, competent art. Especially if you're not... if you don't have like a critical eye for art. It's possible for somebody to be a good artist, but then not have that great of a critical eye for the art that they look at for like other artists, because obviously nobody's in somebody else's head, right? I feel like if anything, it's probably attributable to that. Attributable to that. And also, like, in a lot of ways, the school system is pretty dumb in that, like, they want to give you, like, marks or a percentage grade or something like that on how good your art is. Like, motherfucker, that's not how art works. You know what I mean? How do you think art is going to be affected by the age of fascism? Well, we've already seen with the rise of AI that art is being negatively impacted, as are artists. Of course, you know, fascism is an inherently anti-art ideology, anti-artistic ideology, because fascism, being a collectivist ideology, abhors individual expression, abhors anything that is not completely subservient to the state and the organs of the state and the master race, etc., etc. So, you know. Did I get third? Okay. But fascism is also incompetent, so obviously there is still going to be art. There's still going to be pretty good art, in fact. And that's going to be reflected. The character of this time period will be reflected in the art that we see produced during it. You know? Like, how I went to school and was like, this is supposed to help me get a job, and they failed because I'm trying to get a job and I haven't for the past 2 years. Yeah, school, this is one of the failures of school in a capitalistic system, is that they're not trying to educate you to be able to function in the world as an adult. They're trying to they're basically trying to produce workers to well, to go work in the fields, in the factories, in the mines, in the whatever, in the hotel, in the service industry, and whatnot. And believe it or not, working does not require a good education. You know? So, because everything is about work and shit like that, and you know, a lot of, most liberal institutions don't give two shits about the actual furtherment of humanity. You know, that's what you get. You don't get a good education. You get fucking borderline job training, where school tells you don't do what you want, do what pays the bills. Okay. I have some foggy memories that some teachers hated me for not respecting hierarchy. Yeah, there's some, there's definitely a fair few horror stories to be had from the school days where, like, oh shit, the best item in the game. A lot of it was about respecting authority, and I did not. I really, like, I was there to learn, so I was a good student, and I learned, but I didn't respect the teachers for the authority that they had. And, you know, the only reason I didn't give that much lip to the cop, the resource officer on site at the school, is because I knew that they could shoot me if I said something, you know? Oh, what? That's kind of wacky. Okay. One time I failed a language. Art class. Art class because the final exam was to build a cardboard chair and I didn't know how to do it. Yeah, didn't know you needed to also be an engineer to function in that class. Here, hold on. Let me look something up that I had for today. Current situation. Like, I don't know how to build a stable structure, and there's like, I don't know, figure it. That sounds like average school system behavior. Okay. Are you enjoying the nothing ever happens? I don't know how that doesn't actually relate here. Are you enjoying your eggs not being cheaper? Well, get ready for them to continue to not be cheaper. From the CDC, H5 bird flu, current situation. There's been outbreaks of this. I think they're asking you, do you enjoy liberal fascism? Oh, we'll get to the liberal fascism bit, don't you worry. But right now I'm talking about the bird flu. H5 bird flu is widespread in wild birds worldwide and is causing outbreaks in poultry and U.S. dairy cows, with several recent human cases. I didn't know that. Hold up. Several recent human cases in U.S. dairy and poultry workers. This is from the CDC. While the current public health risk is low, the CDC is watching the situation carefully. Okay. And working with states to monitor people with animal exposures. I know this may be a little bit alarmist of me, but did you enjoy the last pandemic? We'll gear up. The next one's going to be even better. Yeah, irrespective of the implications of this bird flu now having human cases detected, and potentially there being some problems on our hands in that respect, I did see, and it is what I wanted to note was the presence of it in the food industry. The bird flu has been killing poultry, or has been causing a need to cull poultry, which basically means to kill en masse. Because if there's one diseased chicken in like a whole barn of chickens and stuff, then like that presents a risk to every single like potential point of contact that any given chicken in that barn could have had. So like there's a lot of health risks if even one chicken has the bird flu. So a lot of times they'll just be like, shit, we probably should just cull the whole barn and get rid of all the chickens that have been potentially exposed. And so that has predictably resulted in a lot of problems in the supply chain, and is going to result in, you guessed it, eggs getting more expensive. Because the fucking bird flu is outbreaking. And because, you know, I anticipate this problem is going to be difficult to manage. Number one, because of the horrendous conditions in these farms in the first place. And, you know, the animals being so close together, there was always going to be a outbreak there. But then also because of the Trump administration's response to concerns about the agribusiness industry and to the possibility of a new pandemic. One of the first things that Trump announced that he was going to do after his election was dismantle the pandemic response team off of the heels of the last global pandemic that the US was really not that well prepared for. He decided, what if we did it again, but worse? Great. Cool. Nobody in it, like, none of the oligarchs give a shit about public health, I guess. Another pandemic is going to happen under Trump. It is, you know, who would have thought doing the same shit leads to the same outcome as when you did the same shit last time? That's crazy. Yeah. But then also, obviously the one of the main reasons of being for the Trump administration is to loosen up regulations, to deregulate all this industry and stuff. And the sorry state of regulation in the agribusiness industry is part of why these health risks exist in the first place. You know, all the agribusiness titans of industry and shit are in Trump's ear, are in the administration's ears. And that leads to horrendous, like, crowding situations in the farms. It leads to extremely unethical treatment of animals because of the, like, you know, well, business must operate as usual, even if that means, like, animals are being overcrowded and being slaughtered for food, etc., etc. What I'm trying to say is that functionally, the hostility to the concept of regulation and the sort of pettiness and like irrationality that led to the Trump admin dismantling the pandemic response team again was always going to lead to this outcome, and lo and behold, here it is. You know, like we've got a potential bird flu situation on our hands. Well, not even potential. We do have a bird flu situation on our hands, but it could blossom into something worse. Can you imagine our society degrading back into a monarchy? To a degree, it already has. You know, that's why I use the term oligarchs. There are these unelected, wealthier than God, functionally monarchs in their own industries that are, like, dictating the flow of policy without any input from the public. You know? We don't need to imagine. We're already there. Does that make sense? This track is cool. This is a really good... this is another one of those tracks where I feel like it's a really good first attempt for a Mario Kart 8/8 Deluxe port. The only thing that I think really needs to be improved is, like, the bumpiness. You know, it's a little bit bumpy and unruly. Has anything new happened since last Life in the Stream World? Yeah, there was actually something I wanted to talk about in my own life that I, like, forgot to mention. And it relates to the FGC. I play fighting games sometimes. My favorite being Street Fighter. In fact, that's the only traditional fighting game that I play. I started... My introduction to Street Fighter was Street Fighter 6, actually. Like, that was the first Street Fighter game that I played. And then I got, like, the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, which includes everything from Street Fighter 1 up through and including Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So Street Fighter 1, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter Alpha, and Street Fighter 3. But out of all those, I mostly just stuck to Street Fighter 3 Third Strike because everybody loves Third Strike. I'm not that great at it, but I'm learning. I can parry some stuff sometimes. I did do the Daigo parry. They actually have these combo trials. One of the combo trials for Third Strike is you have to do the full Daigo parry and then do the combo afterwards, and I did that. It's not even the hardest trial in the whole thing. I haven't done some of the hardest trials in the combo trials for Third Strike. It's insane. The hub has now banned the word trans. Wait, really? Pornhub banned the word trans? That's fucked up. Why? I mean, I get that maybe they want to, like, they're a business, so they're trying to comply with, well, an extremely reactionary Fuga or something. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, yeah. I guess they just didn't. They probably just didn't want any of the Republicans in states that haven't already banned Pornhub to, like, crack down on it. You know? I don't know if there's well, there's something for me to say. One part of me wants, like, Pornhub to fucking fight back and be like, hey, what about all the trans sex workers that need to make a living, dumbass? You know, like, or something like that. But I also don't know if if it would be particularly effective for a company that primarily deals in the production of porn to like be like a big voice in a progressive cause and stuff. I don't know. Like there's like an optics frog part of me that's like, well, you know, Pornhub might make some people be like, what? That's lascivious and uncouth or some shit, which is cringe on their part. I don't know. I don't know. Look. Yeah. Just look at furry artists on Twitter. Fucking true. It's trans denial fetishism. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I've seen that stuff as well, where the like there is that like, oh, it's a woman with a dick, but it's not. They're not a scary trans woman because they see trans women as men, so they have to like sort of in a way supernaturally justify a woman having a dick or something like that, you know? Like, they can't just have a trans woman. They gotta be weird about it. You never see the other way around? Yeah, it's, you know what's interesting? There is some stuff out there with trans guys. But it's way more fucking normal. It's, like, handled in a way, way less weird way than stuff that ostensibly has trans women. Does that make sense? Like, sometimes you will see a comic, like if you're browsing a furry artist, whatever, you will sometimes see porn of like a transgender female character that was drawn by a straight person. But I have yet to see, and there's like a trained eye that goes into this, like art and proportions that are drawn by straight people versus art that's drawn by queer people. You will never see porn of that includes a trans guy, like, you know, drawn pornography. You will never see drawn pornography that includes a trans guy that was drawn by a straight person. Never. And I know that you're gonna ask, like, how the fuck do you know what that looks like? There is an artist's eye to this, and I'll explain it in as plain of terms as I can. When you see porn, like a porn comic that is drawn by a straight person, and I mean straight with a capital S, like somebody that I would call a Straggit. There's a sort of caricature. There's a sort of heteronormative caricature to the proportions of the characters being drawn. You know what I mean? Like the male characters will be sort of like a caricature of what a heteronormative like straight guy is supposed to look like. And the female characters in like drawn porn drawn by straight artists will be sort of like a caricature of feminine proportions and characteristics, right? They'll be blatantly unrealistic in kind of, I think, an uninteresting way, you know? But then meanwhile, there are certainly certain trends in drawn pornography that is not drawn by not straight people, where the way that the characters are handled, you tend to see a lot more similarities in the ways that men and women are drawn, and they also tend to be drawn in ways that are more like that are less off-putting in terms of their proportions. Does that make sense? I because I'm talking about drawn pornography, it'd be kind of hard for me to pull up an example of this for obvious reasons, right? I'm streaming on Twitch. But yeah, like whenever there is like drawn pornography out there that includes a transmasculine character, you can tell that it's drawn by a queer artist. They're not drawn to be, at least not usually, they're not drawn to be a heteronormative stereotype of a man. And if they are drawn to include certain heteronormative characteristics, they will seem realistic in their character. This could feasibly be a real person with character flaws and character and personality and a shape that doesn't necessarily conform to the whole guys are just like a fucking triangle. You know what I mean? Nice +0. You can tell if it's straight or not based on how much skill was behind it. In a way, yes. Yeah. You can tell whether or not the person drawing it was straight. Because of the care and skill and knowledge they put into depicting the human form. Because straight people, they just kind of go unga bunga brain when they're drawing porn. I'm gonna be real. But then, like, you see porn drawn by a bisexual or a lesbian, you know, my favorite kind of porn. And there's so much care put into the drawings of every character, male, female, androgynous, whatever. And it is genuinely like, you can look at it without it making less sense as it goes on. Do you know what I mean? Makes you think, how do straight people function? True, straight people are kind of gross at it sometimes. I don't want to get into the, like, not trying to do the whole reactionary bit of insert outgroup here is gross, but, like, genuinely, I think that the privilege of being straight in a heteronormative society insulates them from having to be functional human beings in a sexual capacity, if that makes sense. They do that to themselves? They do. And, don't get me... And, if in some weird alternate universe, you found a society that was, like, dominated by a non-straight sort of sexual norm, then you would probably be able to notice that same thing there. It's a product of power. It's a product of the relationship to the state, whether it is a hostile or less hostile relationship, if that makes sense. Ow. See the inauguration? Trump says there are people here. He's still mad about the empty crowd. Man, that shit really got to him, didn't it? Trump loves to be, like, the subject of attention and adoration. Alright, I'm gonna use this here. Oh, baby. Got the chain. Oh, let's go. Let's go. Got him. I need an item here. Okay. I don't know where that went. I don't really care. Okay. Nice. Excuse me, if we had an actual useful party, Trump would have just had his mind destroyed. Dude, I swear, if the Democratic Party wasn't so cucked, if they had ran Bernie in 2016 or in 2020, either year, mop the floor with Trump, fascism doesn't happen because you get the left populism first, and fucking conditions do not worsen. I mean, maybe in some ways they still do because, I mean, shit's complicated, but, like, things would actually start getting better in a meaningful capacity. But no, the Dems are also cucked to the same set of interests that Republicans are, so... They had to mine outrage. They had to mine freak out. What you mean? If Bernie Sanders won? Oh, yeah, the news would have shat themselves, like, legitimately, if Bernie Sanders had won. You know what's funny is that it'd probably be the opposite way of what we had seen, where in 2016 and 2020, I assure you, there were a number of journalists that were, like, very concerned about Trump. There are journalists today that are concerned about Trump and the oligarch like class and the threat that they pose to society as a whole, and you know, I guess to democracy, as they might put it. But then, like, the board, like the shareholders and the like owners and stuff, are not as concerned because they know that, like, oh yeah, this is all for our interests and shit. So you have the journalists that are worried about shit's gonna get really bad, and then the owners are fine with it because things getting really bad benefits them. But if Bernie Sanders had won, all the journalists would be like, oh, could actually be pretty cool. Not as a monolith, mind you. I mean, obviously, no group is a monolith here except for maybe the capital class, like, possibly. But then the capital class would be shitting a brick over Bernie Sanders winning, like, genuinely. Whoa! Okay, okay. I flew up in the air from that. Imagine the alternate universe in the following election. God, if only. I've maybe. I mean, in a assuming that other circumstances remain like pretty similar, it's kind of sobering to think that Bernie Sanders could have won the election and then would have just instantly gotten stonewalled by both parties. Like, the Democrats and Republicans would have fucking united unconditionally with the sole goal of, like, screwing over Bernie Sanders and his presidency, because, you know, they, like, them being bought out and serving the same set of interests means that the, like, whenever those interests are threatened, they will unify behind them. And Bernie Sanders and the brand of politics, or you know, brand, whatever, the politics that Bernie Sanders represents is a threat to the interests of the capital class. And so, the entire capital class would unite against him. So, I don't, like, and it does pain me to be a Debbie Downer, but it genuinely, even in that scenario, there might not have been as good an ending as we would have wanted there to be. Feels like if there's, it feels like if their only option was you have somebody like Bernie Sanders, they would just delete their own party. Yes, they would do that. In fact, we kind of saw this with Tim Walz. Tim Walz was a very progressive VP pick. Too progressive, in fact, for the Democratic Party. A lot of the post-DNC campaigning of the Democrats was defined by them trying to get Tim Walz not to talk about anything. Because he isn't necessarily, like, you could, in some ways, I could characterize him as a liberal, so he's kind of subject to some of the same biases that other liberals are, but he's also, like, he's not necessarily a neoliberal in that he supports supporting the rights of the workers, and he supports a social democratic welfare state. And that is not compatible with a neoliberal set of economic interests in cutting regulation and such. I still don't know how to do that. And apparently they don't either. Democrats are like, shoot, we're running out of old people. Yeah, it's kind of how a gerontocracy works. Eventually the old people all fucking die. You know? I got somebody. Playing this one game, can you imagine how... Maybe if you could rewind 1 minute for the rest of your life. What? Rewind 1 minute. Like, I have a rewind button, but I can only use it for 1 minute. Like, I can only use it once for like, to rewind 60 seconds backwards. That's kind of goofy. Usable, but you can't use it consecutively. Okay, okay. I think I see what you're getting at. Like, you can't stalk it to go back further. Yeah. Like you can't rewind 2 minutes. You have to let a minute play out or something. Hee. Second place. I don't know what I would do with that. Like, genuinely. Seems like I should use this power sparing. Trying to use it constantly. Yeah, if you give me basically a save state function, then you can't not have me tool assisted speedrunning my whole life. You know? Like, I'm just gonna save state, let a minute pass, and if that doesn't play out, load this fucking... rewind back and then let it play out again or some shit like that. Although, you could overthink it and be like, oh, maybe I still age 1 minute if I use the rewind button. So, like, if you use it a lot, you end up aging way faster and then you fucking die. Because, like, over the course of using it over and over again for a long time... You've added like several more years onto your life that is just spent in the 1 minute rewind thing, if that makes sense. This is Donut Plains 3, the classic. The session's been all about me getting wheelie bumped. Whoa! I had somehow avoided that. You don't age, you keep the items that you have in your pockets in the game. Oh, okay, yeah, then there's literally no consequence to using it just as a save state function. But I didn't get to talk fully about Street Fighter. You asked me like a little while ago what was going on in my life and stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about having done some Street Fighter shenanigans lately. Only weakness is you can't use it if you're on the effects of drugs. Well, that's gonna be pretty easy because I'm fucking stone cold sober all the time. But anyway, Street Fighter. I mentioned that Street Fighter 6 was the first Street Fighter game that I played, and then I like got the 30th anniversary collection, started playing some Third Strike, game's hard as balls. And from there, I started playing some other stuff. I remember there was a Steam sale. There was a Steam sale around Christmas where I was able to get Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 for really fucking cheap, which is cool. Because those are good games too, and I'm jumping the wrong way for some reason. I don't know why that's happening. And then I chanced to play Street Fighter 2. I wanted to go through some of the older or somewhat lesser played Street Fighter games. And I know everybody loves Street Fighter 2. I hate that game because I think the controls have not aged well. And that's even on Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo, which is like the most played revision of that game with the most like quality of life updates and stuff. But I played the original Street Fighter 2, not like the hyper fighting whatever. They didn't even have the combo counter. Crusty ass old Street Fighter 2, and I actually did beat the arcade mode. Again, game's hard as balls. But I also thought about, like, hey, hang on. What if I played one of the other versions of Street Fighter 3? Why does every fighting game have the most convoluted story? Because fighting games aren't primarily about the story, so they're kind of an afterthought. But then they have this, like, comic book-esque... The characters in fighting games, especially for something like Street Fighter, for the fan base, occupy a role that's almost larger than life, much like a comic book superhero. So there will be endless retcons and weird story rewrites to sort of keep the characters centered as they are in the game because the fans really like that. That's how you get the really, really bizarre, convoluted world of any given fighting game. Seen fighting game community super autistic? Yes, and I love it because I'm also very autistic. Um, but Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is the one that everybody plays. Everybody loves Street Fighter 3, but everybody doesn't necessarily love the other versions of Street Fighter 3. There's actually, because it's called Third Strike, predictably, there are 2 other versions that came out before it, called Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and then Street Fighter 3 Second Impact. And I had seen a little bit of Second Impact, but I remember seeing a little bit of New Generation and saw that the game was like somehow faster than Third Strike or something like that. There's like Third Strike had a lot smoother animations. That was a really good target shot. So I played New Generations. I played the arcade mode. Predictably, I played Ryu because I play Ryu in every fucking Street Fighter game. I play all the Shotos in every Street Fighter game. Because I love the Shotos. And Street Fighter 3 New Generations is surprisingly fun. And there's going to be something, isn't it the guy who has anger management problems? Yes, that is the guy who occasionally will turn into evil Ryu in the games. And then, like, his anger manifests as a separate fucking being called Kage. Like, Demon Ryu or whatever, you know? But in New Generation, you know how Street Fighter 3 has this, it almost sounds like a JoJo reference. It does. Yeah, Kage is like Ryu's stand on fucking Requiem mode. It doesn't do what he says. The Street Fighter 3 is really, really beloved by the community for the parry system. Basically, it is so difficult because of how simple it is. If somebody's attacking you, just tap forward, forehead, and you don't take any damage. Like, seriously, in a lot of fighting games, you take a little bit of damage when you block stuff. It's called chip damage. But if you parry something, you don't take any chip damage. And you gain a bunch of, like, your super meter. So everybody loves the parrying system, even though it's hard as balls. It is super simple. You just tap forward or like tap down if they're trying to hit your toes. And you completely invalidate the attack. Predictably, this does not work on grabs. How's a PvP game difficult? Are you working with the same thing? Because other people are way better at parrying than I am, and because when I said just tap forward forehead, I do mean just tap forward. You can't hold forward. Or you can, but the window's actually smaller than if you tap forward. Attacks in fighting games happen pretty fast, so you have to know that somebody's about to hit a button at you, and you tap forward and you block it. You can't spam it because they thought of that, so it's like, nah, you can't just spam that. Your parry won't work if you do that. There's always someone better than you at everything. That's life for everyone. Listen to what I'm fucking saying, all right? You could try to like read some sort of insecurity into this that isn't there, or you could listen to what I'm trying to tell you, which is I'm trying to explain the parry system to explain why I like New Generation so much and why other people I guess don't. Parrying is really simple, but it's really difficult in Street Fighter 3. I played Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and parrying was actually really easy. Or not really easy, but like after having played Third Strike a lot, you go back to Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and it's like much easier by comparison, paradoxically, because of how much faster the game is. And like attacks happen more frequently, they come out faster, they have less end lag and stuff. So like your timing doesn't have to be comparatively as exact. So I was parrying a ton of shit that like I would never be able to get away with parrying in Third Strike. And I also have a soft spot for that game not having these like enhanced EX moves or whatever, and having different voice acting. The voice acting, believe it or not, for New Generation and for Third Strike is different. They have different voice actors for characters like Ryu and Ken at the very least, and Gil as well, one of the boss characters. You know. And I think those characters, like, the voice acting really sounds good. But I guess the devs didn't quite think so because they changed it for Third Strike. And it's not like the acting in Third Strike sounds bad by any means. Like the voices sound great. But it's real novel. Being the kind of Ryu player that uses the Shin Shoryuken, Super Shoryuken, I was actually very happy that there were no EX moves because I don't use EX moves anyway. So that's a level playing field, motherfucker. You gotta deal with my super being even more stupid. You know? If you don't know Street Fighter, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But anybody that knows Street Fighter knows exactly what I'm talking about. Basically, I have a certain play style in fighting games. Let's try to explain it for all the non-fighting game heads out there. I have a certain play style in fighting games that I really like. And that is picking a character that does a lot of damage, picking the super that does the most damage, if that's a thing that you do, if you have to pick your super, and just going in like, I'm a nuke, I might not be the best character, but if I touch you once, you will lose 2/3 of your life bar. And that's how I play the game. And it is very fun. But there are a lot of tools in most fighting games that make it so that many other playstyles also work. And so that my playstyle isn't usually the dominant one, right? Like, there are trade-offs to picking a nuke character with a nuke super and trying to just throw yourself at the other person like a nuke, you know? But in a new generation, some of those tactics literally don't exist. So I can just be a nuke and throw myself at the other person, and that's actually, like, probably one of the better strategies that I could pick, you know? So I was like, yes! You know, it just... Street Fighter 3 New Generation was like, really appealed to the way that I play fighting games. In a way that Third Strike doesn't, but also I recognize that Third Strike is just, like, a better game. You know? Because the animations in Third Strike, in the later revision, are a lot smoother. There are more characters. Street Fighter 3 New Generation only has 8 characters, and 3 of them are Shotos. If you're not familiar, Shoto is like the kind of character that looks and functions pretty much like Ryu. Think of it like, you know how in Smash you have, like, clone characters and stuff? There's, like, 3 characters that are all at the core very similar to Ryu in Street Fighter 3 New Generation. And in Second Impact and Third Strike, there's 4, but also in Second Impact and Third Strike, there are more characters in general. So. But I really enjoy Street Fighter 3 New Generations. Goddamn. You know? Game is cool as hell. Oh no. I'm gonna get a red shell. Probably. Yeah, I knew it. Double! Come on. And I get 1 red shell in 7th. What? That's fucking mean, dude. Why did he do that? Why did he... That's fucked up. Also, for every Street Fighter 3 appreciator, bring back Ryu's old donkey kick animation. Ryu has this move in a lot of Street Fighter games, but mostly in, like, the later ones that the community calls donkey kick, where he kind of jumps forward and kicks out. You can't see what I'm doing. But he stands on one leg and kicks really hard with his other leg, like a forward-moving kick. And the way the way it's animated in Street Fighter 3 is actually just really, really pretty. Like, he does the thing where you kind of jump step forward with the back leg and then kick with the front leg. And it's, like, really fluid, and it looks so cool. Like, he's putting his whole weight behind his one leg, and then he kicks. And it just looks like... It looks like Chef's Kiss. But then in some of the later Street Fighter games, they changed the animation, and I don't think it looks as good. Because I you know, particularly that is something that I care about, because me playing the fighting game wanting to just be a nuke and throw myself at the other person and do one squadrillion damage in one combo relative to other characters. I also want my moves to look like they're doing that, you know? Like, I don't want to go in there doing a million damage, but with a character that looks like they're doing tiny baby slaps, you know? Like, that would just kind of be a little bit weird. Give me a box. Yes. I might get fucked up by this Mega Mushroom, or not. Okay. Works out. I'm in 5th. I probably could have gone for one of those items. But, I don't know. Maybe it was better just not to risk it. In 6th? If I am in 6th for the... Well... No, I'll... Yep, okay. Alright, or I could just get a green shell. I didn't realize how many people would, like, actually slow down for those items. That's kind of unexpected. Oh. Okay, well... Oh, that's... No! Dang. It's fine. This track is cool, so I like it. Tenth. Ah! Alright. What else we got? Okay. That concludes the FGC quota for this stream. The whole... Hate when games have kill barriers like that. Yeah, that one's kind of annoying because you literally can't see it. It's like, for the same reason that it's annoying to, like, drive up a hill in real life. It's like, you can't see the fucking obstacle at the top. You can't see the car coming at you from the top. You know? Yeah. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about, because people were talking about this in the Discord channel, the amendment, the one that the Republicans introduced in the House of Representatives. Everybody knows what it is. The fucking let Donald Trump run for a third term amendment. First of all, I want to mention that it is extremely funny that they worded it specifically so that presidents like Obama could not run. Like, you could only run for a third term if you had 2 non-consecutive terms. And they, like, did that specifically with Trump in mind. I thought that was really funny, specifically because of how petty it was. Kazas96, hello, welcome to chat. But then the contextual reason why I'm able to view that as funny is because I think that's really just a distraction. Keep in mind, a constitutional amendment needs 2/3 of the states in order to ratify it. Fuck. Ow. Ow. Like, this whole let Donald Trump run for a third term thing is not going to pass. It's purely a virtue signal / troll / I did it for the Vine, Your Honor. Like, it's not actually going to go anywhere. And it is useful, though, to highlight, unlike some of the other stuff, like the executive orders about erasing any mention of trans people from government functions and stuff like that, those are real threats that are also distractions. This is actually more of a pure distraction, which is kind of I mean, it's nice to contextualize, right? Like, you know, while everybody's talking about this, they just kind of go, the administration and the billionaires and the cabinet and whoever, they just kind of go behind the scenes like, great, now let's fucking sabotage union organizing and all that. Doesn't that mean by talking about? You're falling for it. In a way, yes, but I'm talking about it specifically to indicate what they are, what it is, like, that it is purely a distraction. And I don't intend to talk about it much beyond this stream, right? Unless somebody asks about it, but, like, yeah. But yeah, thankfully, that's not of any real consequence, apart from, like, haha, look at the keys I'm jangling in front of you while we get away with fucking murder in the background. Like the ice raids. That's a more real thing. One of those real things that's also a distraction, but again, is always just geared to serve the interests of businesses. You know, it's not a coincidence that this comes in the early days of the administration as they're signing all these executive orders and talking and telling ICE to tell that to the veteran that got kidnapped. Look, again, that's one of those things that is both a distraction and a very real threat. Did you not listen to what I was saying earlier? And I'm going to explain exactly how it's meant to just serve the interests of capital anyways, right? The purpose of these ICE raids, precisely because of instances like that, is to terrify the labor force, particularly migrants, so that they can be paid less than what they are now, with even less likelihood that they will unionize. But the more people are terrified, all the better, right? And of course, ISIS is the fucking Gestapo. They're super racist. They are so racist, they had to invent racism too, just to describe immigration and customs enforcement, right? So the objective there is to scare people. It is to do some, like, high-profile arrests and raids and deportations and shit that unarguably affects people's lives very negatively, very publicly, very humiliatingly, very, you know, very authoritarian power move, but to do it mostly as a show of force so that you don't actually have to deport an appreciable amount of people to dent the, like, migrant workforce economy. Does that make sense? Essentially, the reason that they went into, I believe, is a restaurant in Newark and just picked out some random guy for being brown. Number one is because ICE is fucking racist. But then number two is because if they're getting people terrified over that, then they're less likely to make a fuss at work because they could just be ratted out to immigration services or some shit. Even if they're not an immigrant, you know, like that guy that got arrested was a U.S. military veteran, a citizen, and they arrested him anyway. He even showed them, apparently, or maybe it wasn't him, it was somebody else. Like, ICE had been showed as well, for some of the other people that they detained, valid forms of identification. They were like, I don't know, looks fake. And they just nabbed him anyway. You know? My honest opinion, even though I think the Republicans wanted to be a distraction, I think ICE is going to do whatever they want. Yeah, and I think that's probably the case as well. That ICE is going to, like, basically take it as far as they can, because ICE are, like, true believers, the, like, high on their own supply kind of fascists. And meanwhile, the Republicans that are all running the show, for the most part, are the more Putin-esque, you know, opportunist fascists who just want the, like, the oligarchy. ICE is now the new KKK. In a comparative sense, like with stochastic terrorism, yes. Like, imagine if the KKK were deputized by the fucking government. Then, yeah. You know? Like, they'll just fucking sack your ass over being brown. Okay. That shock was not too bad for me, I think. Nice. They don't like you, they'll just claim you're an immigrant? Yeah, they'll just claim, like, you look like you could be undocumented. Fucking come with us. What's that? Your ID? What ID? Or, I don't know, that ID looks fake. I don't know. You know, they'll just do some shit like that. Not like they're gonna face any meaningful repercussions, right? Like, keep in mind, before ICE existed, ICE is a fairly recent creation of the United States government. They only were created in 2003. That's 22 years ago. Not a very long lifespan for a government agency, you know? Before ICE, it's not like the United States didn't have immigration services. We had immigration services. We still do. It's called the INS. I forget what the N stands for, but it's Immigration Something Services. Immigration and Naturalization Services. There you go. I think that's what it is. Nope. What the fuck? INS agency. Yeah, the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Wait, no, we don't have it? Oh my god, they actually dissolved the Immigration and Naturalization Service so they could create ICE. They dissolved the existing US immigration system specifically to create one that was more Hitlerite. Seems like the rest of the party is trying to do the final solution. Yeah, there a lot of the cops and ICE agents that are like on board with that stuff. The non-politicians, the non-oligarchs that are truly aligned with Republicans are the fucking true-blooded final solution kind of fascists. And then the leadership at the GOP and the oligarchs that they serve and consult with are like, they'll let the final solution happen as long as they get to make their billions still, you know? That's the kind of political front that the Republicans have created. Look at my face, it shows the lack of surprise from that news. Yeah, I mean, I legitimately didn't know... Okay, well, I legitimately didn't know that the INS had been dissolved. I knew it existed, but I didn't know that they, like, specifically got rid of it so they could have ICE. That's, like, really, really on the nose. I actually was kind of not ready for that. There's going to be a clash in the Republican Party in someday in the future. I don't know when it's going to happen. We've seen some beginnings of that over immigration, at least a little bit. I don't know if that feud might be like kind of over and done with. But like there's a very clear divide between the ideological like ethno-state white nationalist types and the oligarch Elon Musk types that are primarily interested in like just having cheap labor, so they're contextually pro-immigration, you know? Like I said, not sure how much more we're going to see of that, but I know that divide exists. We'll see. When the conflict starts within the Republican Party, I'm just going to have my popcorn bag. Yeah, get ready. You're ready for America to fucking tear itself apart over this. Honestly, like, again, it keeps coming back to this, but I really want to hammer home. Sometimes our best bet is the incompetence of the fascist. Fascists are not competent stewards of government. It's well known. Fascists not good at running a government. The only reason that Nazi Germany even held together as long as it did, which was only 12 years, mind you, is because they were able to literally fuel their economy with war plunder. Like, if the Nazis didn't have war plunder to paper over the economic situation in Germany, their economy would have collapsed long before the 40s. You know? They're just not smart and not good at things. They're not good at being people, generally. And that includes, you know, being part of the, well, governing unit of society. Being, you know, like a liberal state framework, right? Because if you think about what makes a competent policymaker, what makes for competent policy, it's attempting to address the root causes of problems that a nation state or community is facing, right? But that requires a rational framework. It requires a materialist framework in order to identify what those root issues are, not merely symptoms or convenient narratives, but root causes of issues. And then it requires you to, like, well, say, okay, Yeah, what's the root cause? Poverty? Let's address poverty. Let's address income inequality, because that's clearly making all these other things a lot worse. Then that cracks open the door to see how bad are these other things? Do we need to address them on their own, etc., right? It's just a logical decision-making process. But Nazism and fascism are inherently irrational and illogical ideologies, right? So they can be faced with the most obvious, root cause in the world, right? And many of these root causes are pretty obvious to anybody with a modicum of education. And they will reject it in favor of saying, I don't know, the Jews did it. And they'll let it fester. And our best bet is for that, festering to result in, very wide-scale discontent. And it's not to say that, there wasn't discontent under the Nazi regime in Germany, but again, the papering over of some of the worst contradictions of economic mismanagement does a lot to keep people relatively quiet. Next election is going to be rigged. Imagine next is Elon Musk. Oh, that's going to be a absolute shit show. I'm kind of assuming that elections from here on out favor Republicans because Democrats are painfully incompetent. The Republicans are good at taking power at the very least. Siri auto-corrected right people with great people. Tim Cook is listening. Tim Apple, the CEO of Apple. He is listening to you. But yeah, the ideal outcome is one in which the damage to the economy and the damage to, the livelihood of everybody in America is not something that you can paper over, at least not easily. Not easily enough for a fascist to do it, Yeah, you could say the damage that is gonna happen is immeasurable. And somebody's day is going to be ruined. And that is our best bet, because when somebody looks at that immeasurable that damage that is immeasurable and possibly you could even say day ruining, and they say, wow, that damage is immeasurable. My day, personally, it's ruined. Then it's over for the fascists. But, unironically. Flip that. Mostly a note for future me. I might want to come back and flip that. Oh shit, Daisy just got fucked up. Watching that video from V complaining that movies are not horny, they're just hot in modern times. Yeah, I think I do genuinely think that movies don't have enough. What was that take? It was like horny and sexless or something like that. And I think I agree. And I think part of that is just because people are prudes. People have been conditioned to be fucking prudes. Yeah. Literally in the first Captain America, he was buttered up. Yeah, how are you gonna have that and then not have like a nice sex scene or something featuring Captain America and whatever? And look, it's possible that there's an argument to be made, maybe, that like, oh, the actors might not be comfortable with that. That's fine. That's why you have stunt performers. Like, I'm halfway joking, but I'm also not. Like, there's an entire... We know that there's a whole framework for movies to... for movies to have sex scenes that are very well managed and ethically conducted in the modern times, right? Like, you have intimacy coordinators, you have stunt coordinators that are specialized for sexual scenes in movies and stuff like that, so that nobody feels uncomfortable with this stuff, you know, so that you don't run into a lot of the ethical problems that used to exist in movies when you had the sex scenes where somebody was more or less an unwilling participant. Like that was a big problem. But I like really, I think that the cutting out of sex from movies has done immeasurable damage to the psyche of people, you know? And like, I mean that in the sense that they don't have sex be present enough as themes in the movie. I think a lot of times sex gets way too relegated to the subtext of a movie. You know, like the sexual themes, the Freudian sexual dimension of humanity that percolates every single artistic thing ever. They always leave that where it is so almost imperceptible that you need a fucking, like, extremely well-trained critical eye to pick up on it. This helps people say, why doesn't the LGBT not do that? What? Oh. Oh, yeah. Like, the correlation of horniness being bad, inherently enables the mindset of queer people being like unnatural or whatever because they're sex pests or something, because being a sex pest is when you have sex or something. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Yep. It's because I think there's just a lot of the sort of sexual pathology of the reactionary that prevents people from depicting sex as a free act engaged with or engaged in by free individuals. Like, it has to be something marital and romantic, always, you know? And I know a lot of people are like, could easily say that, like, oh, well, maybe it's hard to write a sex scene that's like what you're describing. And my answer to that, like, again, I'm dealing in hypotheticals right now, but like the reluctance to do that ultimately does come down to a skill issue in part, if you're aware of this problem. Because, like, you know, writers, their job is to write, you know? Like, get on that shit. This is not me chastising writers in any way. What I'm saying is I think it would be cool if there were more sex in movies and also sex on TV. And less of those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely. Something, Family Guy. Find it funny that some men that want women tell women it's their fault that they're not in a relationship even though women don't care. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's characteristic of like masculine insecurity and stuff, you know. That like a lot of, particularly again, straight people, not beating the fucking can't be normal allegations, right? I mentioned this in a clip on my Twitch channel actually about how the sexual revolution is for both men and women. Because it like there is this sickening and like diseased ideology that mostly people on the right and very, very frequently men are subject to, that holds that like women are like not people, basically. It's really bizarre that they are picked up by this ideology that relies on the insecurity of not being able to control another person sexually. And then that ideology, through it creating a weird image of sex that is very anti-sexual, it perpetuates that insecurity, right? Where is my anti-straight propaganda? Well, there it is. Who among us is not gay for men and women? If you're straight, stop that. If you're a guy and you're straight, stop that. Simply be gay for women. There you go. It sounds like a joke, but legitimately, a lot of the heteronormative attitudes towards sex are those of like control and domination and subservience, both in a sexual and non-sexual sense. I mean, because they're very closely intertwined there. But yeah. In the world I want, everyone is bisexual shapeshifters. That sounds base as hell. When do I get to move into that world? That'd be real nice. And for the guys out there that truly, authentically hate women, that's fine. Just fuck other dudes. Like, that's allowed. You can just do that. You're allowed to just do that. You know? And for people who are wondering about why I'm not necessarily directing any of my points here towards women, I assume that there are, like, most women probably know some version of this already. You know? No, I didn't. I need a pow dodge, right? What's up, Peach? Track's great. I like it. Story idea I have in my head sometimes is what happened to a creature they gain sentience out of nowhere. Gain sentience out of nowhere? Like I mean, like a non-sentient object gaining sentience or something? Out of nowhere, out of the blue. Creature. Like an animal? Well, most animals are sentient. I don't know. I don't know what you'd be thinking of there. Its level of awareness makes it think that it was sleeping, and then it like comes to life. Maybe I'm just thick. I genuinely don't know. You know, your dreams, you're like less aware. Oh yeah, you're like not entirely lucid. So it's like you're waking up out of a fucking hallucination. Okay, yeah, I think I see what you're getting at. Dreams are interesting, though you're viewing your thoughts to a fake environment. Dreams are pretty interesting. You know, I had a dream once where I moved to Alaska. It was kind of goofy. I just picked up and moved to an apartment building in Alaska. I live in Alaska? Oh, sick. But there's one last thing I wanted to talk about, which was the purpose of me mentioning those ice raids. One time I had a dream where I woke up as a dragon, jumped out of the window, and started flying and stirring at my stash shadow. That's pretty funny. You just turn into a dragon, start fucking... Yeah. Oh, staring at your shadow. Gotcha. But I meant like spinning around in circles. That sounds like surreal. Somebody could paint that and it'd be a really good surrealist piece or something. Alright. Well, it's a good thing the shot happened there. I don't think I was getting that shortcut. But yeah, the ice raids. The reason I mentioned those earlier is because good slash bad news, depending on your inclination. We can no longer use the term Reddit as an insult because Reddit did some based shit, and has been doing some based shit. A lot of subreddits actually have been banning Twitter links, as well as banning like far right and like fascist or fascist adjacent users from the platform, which I think is really cool. You know, a true anti-fascist website. I don't know how long it's gonna last. You know, given there's got to be some ownership structure. Yeah, the Reddit rebellion or some shit. Particularly, what I saw was there were a bunch of subreddits relating to the education system, where a lot of teachers are, and they're actually, yeah, particularly like, you know, there's r slash you know, whatever city, r slash teachers, and they're all saying like, yeah, ICE, there's a credible threat that ICE could potentially raid the school where we work, and we want to be ready for that. You know, what do we do? And most of them are like, principal sent us ICE protocols. District has sent out a message to our entire community saying ICE will not be allowed into school buildings without a warrant. ICE coming to schools. You know, ICE, like, basically, ICE is now just the secret police. Yeah, the not so secret police. They're telling like, hey, you know, there's such and such who is threatening to call ICE on us, to like SWAT us, but with ICE instead of the SWAT department or SWAT team or whatever. And they're all unifying behind the message. All right, don't let ICE in. Tell them they fucking can't come in if they don't have a warrant, and like block them at every turn. Because what is ICE there to do? You think they're there for the teachers? No, these guys are the biggest, like, most racist pussies on the planet. They're there for the kids. They're there to try to like scoop up the kids, you know, deport them if they look brown enough, and probably sexually harass them on the way out. You know, like, that's what ICE does. And it actually has been very very nice to see a lot of teachers on Reddit, you know, sort of communicating with each other, saying like, hey, you know, this is what our directives were, you know, just to do not cooperate with ICE. You see them come in, they are a threat to the kids here, and stuff like that. This is only like the first month. It is only the first month, but I think this actually bodes well for the future, because it means that, like, people aren't just gonna fucking take it, right? Like, nobody's gonna just let ICE come in and deport a bunch of kids. No, they're gonna like shut the door on them and be like, no, look, if you wanna get in, you're gonna have to do some heinous shit. And of course, ICE is known to do some heinous shit, but one of the most effective strategies in history is to let the world watch in horror as people's human rights are abused. People whose human rights you are not conditioned to accept the abuse of. And, you know, the all-American teachers in this country, people got a lot of respect for the teachers, despite what some people on the right may say. Teachers getting beat up by the police for not handing over their kids to the state, people are going to be sympathetic to those teachers. And like I said, ICE are also massive pussies, so you might just be able to, like, gather a bunch of your teacher friends, get the fucking biggest guy in the teacher's lounge, all cross your arms in front of ICE, and they might, like, shit themselves on the spot and leave, you know? Republicans like doing bad stuff to children for some reason all the time. Yeah, well, children are probably the easiest group, without a socially enabling force that will let them act freely. Children, you know, like when isolated, they're the easiest force for a reactionary political unit to control and abuse sexually. So that's why Republicans love going after kids, because they're also massive pussies who love being child predators. I think that's a good last race of the session. Alright, let's quit the game. Whenever I hear all this bad stuff happening, it makes me not want to leave my house ever. I'm kind of the opposite. I hear this bad stuff happening, and I want to go and do something, right? Like, I don't feel comfortable just staying in my house as the world decays around me, you know? That's why I ordered those stickers. You know, I think I mentioned this last stream. I ordered some anti-capitalist stickers online that I plan to, like, when I go out and ride my bike, I'll just put them up someplace. You know? Sometimes when I walk outside, I barely see anyone, even though I walk a little bit. Well, that's, you know, unfortunate product of living either in America or in Alaska or potentially during this time of year. There's not that many people out. You know, there's a number of things that can do that. It's unfortunate to see. I blame suburban neighborhoods. Oh yeah, if you live in suburbia, it's fucked. It's fucked. Like, the only place I ever really see people out and about are on the bike path. Even today, like cold Sunday morning, I saw people out there. I work on Sundays, so. And whenever I go to the food bank, there's like a bunch of not mixed-use buildings, but residential buildings close enough to commercial buildings that you see people out and about. Not necessarily to say hi, because again, I'm on my bike and kind of whizzing by. But you know, it does feel like there's life there. Not so with suburban neighborhoods, because it's all housing and nothing else, and it's like low density and spread out, and there's nothing to do. Makes me feel like we're livestock. It does feel that way a little bit, doesn't it? In a way, it's kind of like reminds me a little bit of how in a prison, it's very locked off from the outside world. And sure, you have your cafeteria, but that's inside the prison. You have, like, you do your laundry, but that's inside the prison. There's not, like, any way for you to engage with the outside world, short of leaving the prison. And, of course, there are no armed guards guarding suburbia, right? But it's so vast and sprawling that it does sometimes genuinely feel like an effort to just to try to leave. And sometimes that effort is not, like, entirely worth it because, like, I don't know, maybe you got other shit to do. And each house sometimes does feel a little bit like a cell for people. Unless you have a car. Maybe that's the escape condition. You know, like, every prisoner is allowed to escape, but only if you have, like, XYZ. I don't know. Sloppy analogy, but I get where you're coming from. Anywho. So yeah, bottom line, we can't use Reddit as an insult anymore because they're actually being surprisingly effective in resisting fascism, at least for now. We'll see what is to come. That's cool. And apart from that, the conditions worsen yet still, etc., etc. Hopefully they worsen in a way that's really hard to paper over. With that said, I will probably... I might raid somebody? Maybe. Let's see here. There we go. Delete that. Delete that. Gonna watch Mr. V live stream? Bro, same? I'm probably gonna do that as well. What's this? Yeah. Yeah, okay. No raid today. I'm going to watch a Voosh stream. See you soon. Legit, like, one of the best places to find up-to-date news coverage. Vosh and Hassan. You know, like, you go to CNN, they're all like, wow, woke DEI is dividing America. And then, you know, contrast that to everybody's favorite leftist live streamers, etc., etc. All right, bye.